live now. And so welcome, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. I've been looking forward to having my guest today. She is an author who has written several books. And the subject we're going to talk about today, and certainly we're going to talk about her books and the work that she does, subject is emotional detox. And so it's my great pleasure to interview and welcome Sherianna Boyle, the author of Emotional Detox. And it's really good to meet you. How's it going, Sherianna?
Oh, it's going great, Carl. It's great to meet you too.
Well, great. So you have a few books out there, right?
Oh, I have nine. My ninth one will come out in October 2021. So yeah, I've nine.
That's
The ninth
fantastic.
is good. Yeah, yeah.
That is fantastic. So can I, so I was looking through the notes, and I also I've been reading a lot about what you do. I find that we were just talking off camera,
Yeah.
the work that I do with people with movement disorders or learning disabilities or whatever. A lot of times there's an energy that's just filled with all kinds of sadness and depression, and it could be because of their lack of ability to move as much or as well as they used to, or memory issues or whatever, or just a toxic environment.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that can factor in. And I think that this whole subject of emotional detox fascinates me because it seems to be an area that's left out.
Yeah. So
And
true.
and you're covering it. Tell us about this. Enlighten us. I'm really looking forward to learning.
Yeah. So the best way that I can explain it is people usually understand what a physical detox is, where you might go on some kind of a diet or drink something. And the intention behind that is to release all the impurities like antibiotics or pesticides in your foods, and you release that from your body so that you can feel better, things can function more properly. And an emotional detox is similar, only instead of releasing pesticides and all of that, what we're releasing are reactions.
Right.
So the reactions, the way we react to our emotions, influence our ability to process them, just like food. So if you have a piece of food with, pesticides, it's not going to be as nutritious. And if you have emotions that are buried in what I call reactivity, meaning ways, and we can talk more about that, ways that we mismanage or cope with our emotions or regulate them even. We can talk more about that. Sometimes what we do is that we actually withhold them or keep them from doing what they're there to do. And that really is to help us grow and heal and to feel better.
Interesting. So a number of thoughts are crossing my mind right now, but first one is this: when you mentioned the word reactive, it's almost like, and I've been guilty of this probably my entire life, and I'm trying to manage this better. I think I'm doing a better job lately. But the whole idea of reacting emotionally to something that, in my case, may not even be an issue yet, because it's almost like my brain is trained in such a way where I see a number calling on my phone, I'm like, oh no. Because usually it's because I don't know who it is and it's a spam call, but once in a while, and you know what, I think I'm kind of over that stuff. But there are other things too. It seems like being reactive can really take a toll on us emotionally.
Yeah.
Rather than processing through, thinking about things and making sense of things, and then being responsive. There's a big difference, I'd say. So can you touch a little bit on this subject of reaction?
Yeah. So the way that I define it in my book, An Emotional Detox, is it's how we make the uncomfortable comfortable. And it's interesting, Carl, because the more that I teach the steps of an emotional detox, the more I learn about everybody has their ways that they do that. And it could be something as what you just did as an eye roll. You roll your eyes. How many
Yeah.
of us have done that? We're like, oh yeah, rolled our eyes. But
Yeah.
what happens when you roll your eyes is you actually, it's a way where you might um, avoid processing something, right? So if I roll my
Wow.
eyes, so there's an opportunity there. The phone rings.
Yeah.
You don't know who it is. Not knowing who it is or why they're calling, or if it's something that's, a lot of people worried about getting scammed now, right? Is this
Yeah.
someone that's just going to try to scam me, hurt me, do something? Um, there's emotions there, right? So if we roll our eyes, it's our way of basically saying, I don't want to deal with this. And instead, there might be something like, when I don't know why someone's calling, how does that make you feel,
Mm-hmm.
Carl, is really the question. When I
Yeah.
when I don't know why you're calling, or I'm not prepared for the phone call. And a lot of times we're like, do I get it? Because I don't know if I'm up for it. I don't know if I have enough energy for that phone call.
Oh
And
gosh, yes.
right, and
Mhm.
especially, with your audience and people who are, they really probably I would imagine you have to feel like you have to decide, what am I up for, right? I mean, energetic wise, and when do I kind of take a step back? But no matter what choice you make, there's always something to be processed either way.
Mhm.
So I always say is, if you're processing your emotions, you can never make a mistake. You can never go wrong, no matter whether you pick up the phone or not. If you
Mhm.
process your emotions, you're going to get something from that experience. And what you're going to get is some energy. And when we avoid things, we lose energy. And when we
Mhm.
lose energy, we lose our consciousness and awareness. And as that occurs, we can kind of shut down, right?
Mm.
Because we're spiritual beings first,
Mhm.
and we're not just our physical body. And so when we're not processing, in many ways, we disconnect from really the part of us that is so incredible and can go beyond what's happening in your body.
Just on the way home, and actually one of the reasons I got on here about literally 15 seconds before you did,
Yeah.
because usually I'm in a few minutes early, 5 minutes
Sure.
or whatever, is I had a text message from somebody as I came back from the last patient I was working with. She says, "Do you have time to chat?" I don't know who this is. And they text me, so they have my number. Um, so I thought about it, and I'm using hands free. I'm like, I think I will in a little while. By the way, do you mind if I ask who is this? And she sends a note back. Well, I know who it is. I go, okay, I'll call you in 10 seconds. I call her right up, but it was this idea of what am I getting into? And
Right.
how much is it gonna cost me? Because I'm gonna talk with Sherianna at 3 o'clock, and I've got to be on. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want, but you know what? It worked out great. So we talked for half an hour, right up to like 2:58, and it was a great conversation. And there's a project we're going to work on together. But that actually took a lot of energy for a minute to decide how to respond to her. And so, oh, yep, I lost you, but you'll be back. There you are. I hear you now.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've been guilty for so long of
Yeah.
seeing somebody calling and thinking, "Oh no," you know.
Yeah. Yeah. The old oh no's.
Yeah, and the eye
Yeah.
roll, the eye
Yeah.
roll. I probably so. How much of that? How can we tie this? I feel like there's something to tie in here, and
Of
I'm sure that
course,
you.
there always is. I mean, that would be, so. Here's the thing: we don't detox our emotions; we're detoxing our reactions.
Mm,
Some reactions are verbal, some reactions are nonverbal, as you just pointed out.
mhm,
Some reactions are internal. They're a story that we say to ourselves in our head.
Mm.
Um, the point is, it's not is recognizing that I'm reacting. It's having the awareness that I'm in a reaction. And when I'm reacting, what's happening is I'm preventing myself from feeling. And when we're not feeling, our energy goes down. Our consciousness goes vibration, sensation goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And as that occurs, symptoms such as anxiety, such as thinking, such as tension, such as, however it shows up will increase or intensify. So the feelings are not the problem. It's when we try to live and respond and figure out and problem solve from states of non-feeling.
So I'm just going on my own. I can only speak for myself, but in these moments, I'm also not here right now. I'm not
Yeah.
in the here and now because I'm elsewhere, worried
Yeah,
about something.
that's right.
It even could be just a little bit, or I'm distracted, or maybe I'm not worried, but the energy's not going to the right place, and it's also not. I'm not here now,
Yeah.
which is something I've really been working on the past couple of years.
Mm.
So, tell us about the cleanse. You
Yeah.
have when you write out these letters. I love how you've written this out. Take us through cleanse, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Yeah. So, again, CLEANSE is an acronym and it's the 7 steps of an emotional detox. It's an emotional detox and then it's an emotional detox for anxiety. Actually, has it a little bit more scripted out for people. And so you start with the C, you start at the top, and then you end at the E, and the steps build on each other. So
Okay.
you wouldn't separate them out. You wouldn't say, I'm going to do this one and not do that one. And that's really what gives it its effectiveness. It takes you through a little process. And once you get it and you learn it, it can take about 10 minutes to go through it. I can do it in 4 minutes now, but that's because I do it so much. And it's basically that first step is clear reactivity, which is connect to your body, get
Mhm.
into the here and now.
Yeah.
There's some ways you can do that, physical ways that you can do that I talk about, all sorts of ways in that step 1.
Right.
It's also set your intention. What is your intention? When you do the things that I encourage you to do in that step 1, you are setting your intention. And the intention is I'm choosing to heal and that's it. I'm not
Mhm.
choosing to re-traumatize myself. I'm not because a lot of people, Carl, they don't want to feel because they don't want to hash everything up.
Mhm.
And it's too much for them. It's too much to bring it all up, feels very frightening. And
Mhm.
in some ways, I say go with your gut because it can you can re-traumatize yourself if you revisit something over and over again. So what that step 1 does is it really sets that's not what this is about. It's not about rehashing, re-traumatizing, revisiting, even labeling the emotion. It's
Mhm.
just about acknowledging that they're there and making a conscious choice that this is about healing
Mhm.
and expanding. And then that step 2 is called look inward. It's the L. And that's when I encourage people to use certain statements when they acknowledge their feelings. And
Mhm.
I give guidance on how to acknowledge them without re-traumatizing yourself.
Mhm.
Step
Interesting.
yeah. So step 3 is E, which is emit. Now emit is sound vibration. I put a mantra there. Now, the reason I put a mantra is because I
Excuse me.
wrote a whole book. I wrote a book called Mantras Made Easy,
Mhm.
and I believe that book was really for this book. I wrote it. I love that book, but I know now I wrote it because it was going to be in the cleanse. I didn't know
Mhm.
at the time. That's why I
Mhm.
was looking into mantras, but I know the value of them. I know the history of them. And so that step 3 emit is a mantra.
Okay.
They're extremely powerful. A is activate, which is activate joy, and we
Mm-hmm.
do activate it in our lives. And I give guidance for that. And then N is nourish, right? So now we're getting into nourishing, and now we're allowing this activation. And then S is surrender, which is
Mm-hmm.
a statement that I give people, a free will statement, because you have to choose it. I can give you all the tools, but you have to choose it. Everybody has to choose to feel. And then E is ease, which is the I am consciousness. So you land in who you are, who you've always been. It's just we kind of got caught up, you know. Um, and so much what I find why people can go have such a hard time with what's coming up for them is because some of it's genetic,
Mm-hmm.
some of it's been passed on through our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And these are called patterns of reactivity. And so I always say, don't be so hard on yourself because it's reinforced by larger patterns. But the good news is, if you yourself recognize and choose to process, you're breaking up not just a pattern in you, but a bigger pattern that of people who are also reacting just like you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really give an opportunity for everybody to have some space to release this now. So that's the process of the cleanse.
This has me thinking so many things. My we have a few people watching who I know. My mom is watching. Hey,
Oh,
mom.
hi. Hi, Carl's mom.
Helen. Yeah, Helen meet Sherianna. Sherianna meet
Hi,
Helen. My
Helen.
mom. She's amazing.
Aw.
Laura. Laura, almost in Mexico. A very good friend who lives with Parkinson's is here. Hi, Laura. And the reason I mentioned that is because Laura and I were talking yesterday about empowerment, hope, belief,
Yeah.
attitude, perspective. Do you ever find that I'm kind of in my typical ADHD way, which I just make fun of myself because I can and I do. But do you ever find that self worth is a real issue for people? Self love, self valuing ourselves as valuing myself, let's say, and that there's many times a lack of belief that they're worthy or can really do anything. And it's
Mm.
so sad. And I can tell you, I have been there in my life. I still struggle sometimes. But what's your experience in this arena? Lack of self worth. Let's start with that.
Yeah. I think I'm going to slide that into the reactive category, right?
Hmm.
That would be something that you would cleanse so that you could feel the
Hmm.
emotions that are supporting, reinforcing that belief, whatever they are, right? So if you feel like you're not good enough or you're not worthy enough, having that belief makes you feel something or not feel
Right.
something. And so sometimes we shut down, and then that would be where you would begin if you
Hmm.
know that about yourself, that you're carrying that, or if you feel heavy and it feels very, that's the kind of energy that could go into depression, right?
Uh,
That's the kind of
Certainly.
energy that can feel compressive and heartache energy.
Hmm.
That's a hurting heart. And that's where you begin. I always say you begin where you begin. There's no I the begin with what's showing up as closest to the now, right? And if in this moment you're thinking to yourself, I just don't feel good enough or strong enough or hopeful, and whatever that is,
Hmm.
begin there. And when I tell myself that, when I tell them myself that I'm not good enough, it makes me feel,
Yeah.
and
There's a. Mhm. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
There's an education I went through a few years ago. It was really interesting. And they talked about like events that may happen in, well, events that happened in your life
Mm,
and how this event may have been a pivotal point of change because of the meaning you gave to what actually happened.
yes.
And the meaning you give may be completely unrelated to the actual event because there's the event. Maybe
Yes.
somebody called you a bad name, but now you give it meaning and you actually validate it,
Yes.
which is a reaction, I would say, right? That falls
Yes.
into, yeah. And then
Yes.
this can keep snowballing if you hear it again from somebody. Oh my God, that reminds me of 7 years
Yeah.
ago and they said that. And meanwhile, you've already believing it. And now you just revalidated something that's not actually true,
So
but you
true.
believe it is because you gave it meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you do that generally when you're younger. We have ways that we learn to cope with what we what what's coming up. And
Mhm.
a lot of times we'll tell ourselves stories. We'll give ourselves roles or assignments that we're we're trying to make sense of something. Maybe we're trying to do it alone. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And what happens is these emotions get buried. So
Yeah.
when we're busy other people, right? So if our mother is upset or our father's upset or our teacher's upset, we overfocus on them. Like think about it when you're a kid. You're
Hmm.
always so focused on the outside. What do
Yeah.
my friends think? What do my teacher think? What do my parents
Yeah.
think? Right? What does my neighbor think of me? And that overemphasis on the outside causes us to develop those belief systems. And then what happens, those emotions get buried. They never get a chance to get processed and they don't just go away.
Yeah.
It's like they store themselves in the cellular structure of the body and they affect, everything, the way your brain, your neurotransmitters, your blood flow, your circulate, everything gets affected by that. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right that
Right.
these things kind of pile up. You can, you can, at any point in your life, you can begin to learn to process and you can start. So it's a lot of, honestly, Carl, it's a lot of unlearning, don't you find?
Uh,
it's, it's
I
not really
totally,
learning, it's unlearning.
well, so if you don't mind, I just need to make this comment because, um, some people might not believe this, but here's the deal. Imaging has now come out of MIT. Maybe you know about this. It's so cool. I just learned about it recently, and I can't remember who it was. But anyways, imaging has come out from MIT from uh, various people, and their image of their brain
Mm,
in a certain way of living, being, thinking. Okay, well, when they went through therapy, and they probably had to do without even knowing they're doing it, some kind of unlearning and detox
mhm,
emotionally,
sure.
and became much less reactive, became more hopeful and believing in themselves, like they became empowered. Well, I don't know how many years later, these same people all had different brain imaging after than in the beginning, because this is kind of like this
Mm,
neuroplasticity of the brain. It's not just learning how to ride a bike or speak a language or learn a skill or whatever. This actually happens. You have your like emotional neural pathways or brain circuitry,
mhm,
and belief patterns are actually what I'm learning from this research here is that a belief pattern is a series of circuits in your brain that are on like
mhm,
steroids almost, because especially if you get older and you keep believing and believing and believing. So
mhm,
unpaving that road and breaking down that road, and but paving a bigger, positive, hopeful, empowering future involves a lot of work, but I don't think it has to be. I've made it into rocket science when I didn't need to. That's what I love about the cleanse. When you
mm,
take that acronym and you look at it, this breaks it down into much more simple than simple doesn't always mean easy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not rocket science, is it?
No.
And the brain does change
Yeah.
when we
Uh,
believe different.
oh God, yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
much. You're
Yeah.
totally on point with the
And what that
chemicals.
means
Yeah.
then to people see things. Am I breaking up?
No, you're okay
No,
now.
I'm good. Okay. Um, is you're going to have a different perception, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about is perception. How can I see the world through a new lens?
Mhm.
And and and, and that's when you know that things are changing in your brain. They have biofeedback studies, and that sounds like a great study that you came across of. Yeah, absolutely. That when you any kind of self
Yeah.
reflection or whatever you want to say, it sounds like I'm not really sure what in that particular study, but I will tell you there was a study on cigarette smoking, and what they looked at was the amount of puffs someone was taking on their cigarette.
Oh.
And what they found was that the emotion of sadness was correlated to when they felt a sensation. Sadness feels a little heavy, right? If you think about
Mhm.
it, sometimes it can
Mhm.
feel a little cloggy in the body.
Right.
Again, it's that heart heavy feeling.
Mhm.
That's it. They found a correlation to the amount of puffs on a cigarette to the emotion of sadness. So I thought that was interesting. And so much, again, our emotions, they're physical in
Mhm.
that they have a physical anatomy and then they have a non-physical anatomy. They're like the perfect blend of Eastern and Western medicine,
Mhm.
right? Because you can actually see how they impact the body, the brain, but then there's a non-physical piece as well, that they cross, and they cross those physical barriers, which makes them really special because they go into what's called in medicine, in Eastern medicine, is the meridian lines. They talk about meridians and basically
Right.
energy lines, and when you talk about acupuncture and things like that. So, Chinese medicine. So they're the perfect cross between the two. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's so fascinating. You
Yeah.
said another thing earlier about telling yourself a story.
Yeah.
That story is oftentimes it's just made up of what you believe, what the meaning you gave to the incident or the whatever. That
Yeah.
now you're telling a story about it, and you might tell other people the story. And every time you tell a story, it reinforces something that's
Yeah.
actually not true. You just believe
Yeah.
it's true, and that's
Yeah.
very it can be powerful either way you look at it, positive or negative.
Yeah.
But it's that's heavy duty stuff.
And
It can
what's
be
interesting,
debilitating,
Carl,
right?
yeah, it's not just the stories that you told yourself when you were a kid. Here's another thing for your audience to consider. It's also the stories we tell ourselves about other people. So right here and right now, we all
Oh.
have a story
Mhm.
that we tell of maybe about somebody else, right? Very
Mhm.
often, the stories that we say about other people are reflection of something in us that's coming up, that's suppressed,
Mhm.
or a system, a reaction. And we think we're talking about them.
Mhm.
It's kind of
Mhm.
interesting. And when you uncover it all, and you go through the cleanse, it always is fascinating to me how. I'll give you an example. So, a story of, let's say you're dating someone and you don't feel they're committed, right? You feel like you hear this all the time. They have fear of commitment, right?
Mhm.
And you tell yourself that story. Well, they have a fear of the commitment, and therefore it keeps you in a space, and that you uncover all of that. what you can sometimes find is that that person themselves has commitment, right? Meaning they're not committed to themselves. Maybe they're not committed to processing what they feel. They're not, so that often it's a reflection of what's happening inside of us, right? So if we go
Right.
around and say, well, they're not committed, well, then we look at, well, what am I not committed to? And it might not be a person, but am I not committed to my exercise program? Am I not, you know what I mean? And what's going on in me? Because very often that's a reaction. And
Mm-hmm.
and once you clear that in yourself, right? So you clear this idea of this way of managing your emotions by never really committing to something.
Mm-hmm.
Think of how many people start a diet, right? And they don't stick with it, or start
Mm-hmm.
an exercise program and they don't stick with it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
at some point, they have to look at that. That's the way I'm managing what I feel. I start something and then I quit. That's what needs to be cleansed.
Mm. Interesting. I love is I love it when people make me think. You're making me think. It's really good. This whole the older I get too, the older I get, the more I tell myself less stories for sure. I'm also less concerned about whether the people think of me. Not, it's not out of. I'll be 60 this year, so I have less filters. But I try to be respectful. I'm not going to try to, make offend anybody. But at the same time, does it really matter if I have a blue sock and a black sock on? I could care less. If I find out, I'll just go out throughout the day, and it just doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I'll even joke around about it if somebody notices. And that's something I say that because that's something that used to really bother me if I had the wrong colors, because I have a little trouble distinguishing dark blue from black because of some vision things. I don't even care. Who cares?
Mm. Yeah.
So tell me this.
It's a beautiful thing, right? That is one of the thing. Mhm.
No, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. I think I'm on a little bit of a delay just because of my internet, possibly.
Yeah, we're delayed. Yeah.
There's another story I heard. It's real simple. There's a man. He's sitting on the side of a road, and people are. A person is coming down the road from one city, and he's got all this stuff with him. He's moving to another city down the road. This gentleman sitting there is like halfway between cities, and the person asks the guy, so how far to the next town? He says, whatever. I said, well, what are the people like there? And the guy sitting there says, well, what are they like where you come from? So, everybody's really nice. They're great. They're great. Oh, well, that's how they are there too. A little while later, another person comes, same thing, moving to that city. Same thing happens. The person says, well, how are the people in this city I'm going to? Well, I don't know. How are they where you were? He said, oh, they're horrible. They're awful. Oh, that's how they are there too. I might have screwed up the order of it, but the idea is that reflection thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reflection. I see this. I have seen this
Yeah.
so much. I've even been guilty of it. I'm ashamed to say, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, that old thing of saying what you think the person wants to hear, right? And
Yeah.
that's another reaction. I'm just
Mhm.
gonna kind of try to figure out, well, what do they want to know or what do they want to hear? And then I'm just gonna make my answer that way. And that's another way of avoiding what's coming up for us to feel, right? Because if we have that behavior pattern where I just want to make you, let me read between the lines here,
Mm.
right? Because I don't,
Yeah.
that's something, another form of covering up what you feel. I mean, it
Absolutely.
would
Because
be, go
right.
ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Just you don't have to deal with stuff that way because you just deliver what they want to hear, and then
Yeah.
everything's happy
Yeah.
for a minute.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe. Yeah.
think of how many marriages. Well, what do you want me to say, dear? What do you want the answer to be, dear? But then eventually that kind of gets old. And that person who says, what do you want me to say? Eventually, starts feeling like I don't have a voice,
Yeah.
right? I don't have it, I don't have, and they get smaller, they shrink.
Yeah.
And that's where that ends up is they don't feel, valued, basically.
Uh,
So it's a pattern. And the main thing is to notice how we do that. And you've brought up so many neat ways to look at that of how am I avoiding what do I feel? And can I give myself permission to release that now so I can actually feel what's underneath all of that? Um, and
right.
that's a really clever way of avoiding something, isn't it? Sometimes it can look quite, nice on the outside.
It can. A friend of mine in Monterrey, Mexico, is watching. Angeles is with us. Angeles is a very dear friend to
Yeah.
Laura and me. Laura gave me this shirt. Love
Oh,
this shirt.
do they
So
have any questions? Do you ever ask questions or do they ever
yeah, I
chime
do if
in?
if I remember to think about it. But
Yeah,
I have a quick story that I'd be just curious on your thoughts about this.
sure.
The very first trip to Mexico for me to work, I was a keynote speaker at a Parkinson's symposium in Monterey. I just happen to remember the date. It was April 18th was the date of the symposium in 2018. So the time comes, it's time for me to speak. I'm got my suit and tie on and all this stuff, and I'm on the stage, and there's a lady there like this, right? I'm sorry, analyst. We love you. I love you dearly and your family. I mean, you know where this is going because I wrote about it in my book, and she's in there. So, anyways, as I'm speaking, turns out that her husband kind of dragged her there, and she's like, "I can't. I'm going to learn from this guy from the United States, and I've been everywhere. I've talked to. I've heard it. I've heard it all. Nothing's going to happen. That's good." Long story short is, fortunately, I was able to deliver some things that changed her way of thinking. And I'm not doing this to try to impress anybody or take credit for anything. She's the one who did the work. So I get done speaking, go to the room, change out of my workout clothes, come back. Didn't even know what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay, we have 50 something people here. Let's find out what is the challenge that you would like to dominate? Well, if I fall down on the floor, I need to be able to roll over, get up on all fours, crawl to safety. Great. We'll do this workout I call the floor is our friend. But I looked over and I saw an analyst was in tears, and her beautiful daughter, her great husband Ernesto was there with her, and are you okay? Está bien? Oh, sí, sí, señor. Everything's good. Well, I found out later that was the first time she rolled over by herself in 5 years without assistance. So I'm kind of putting this together because she had chosen to. I know you don't mind me saying this, Angeles, or I would not be talking about this live, but it's in my book and you wrote it. So, anyways, is the thing is I'm kind of surmising. I don't have evidence for this, but there must be. She lives with Parkinson's. Um, she's only in her 40s, early 40s at the time I met her, and she had chosen to be pretty much bedridden for about a year before that. I went back 2 months later, and she started running for the first time. She was a marathoner.
Wow.
Um, so
Mm.
is it safe to almost assume, which is a really bad word to use, that perhaps there were some stories being told in her mind? Or do you ever find that I'm trying to tie this together? So I'm really not doing the greatest job of
No, please,
asking
please.
questions, but I find it fascinating and thought
Yeah.
provoking that maybe a little bit of education in how to, again, it could be simple, doesn't mean it's easy, can spark up the brain, spark up the belief system, spark up those neural pathways to
Mm.
create a hope, belief, empowerment, and lives can change. I've seen it happen so many times.
Yeah.
It's I'm completely off on a tangent. but I think it's relevant because of and Laura's the same way. It was a different situation. Laura, who's with us, I mean, this is, a person in her 40s, had Parkinson's for many years, who is they're both the great examples of people who are dominating this.
Wow.
And ain't nothing stopping them because there are no stories now to be told
Mm.
other than good ones.
Yeah, I mean, if they were able to talk right now, I would. What's kind of speaking to me in the moment is how I can't imagine how powerful it must be when in that moment when you have 50 people in a room coming together like that. And
I was scared to death.
yeah,
It's my first time needing a
yeah,
translator too.
yeah, and
There, yeah. But and I'm just going to interject. So,
sure.
Laura, if you're still here, and Angelis, if you're here, if you have any questions, tiene preguntas, um, escríbeme ahora in Facebook comments. I'm going to practice my Espanol. So, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I
You were
I
saying
think
what's speaking to you in the moment, and yet
I
people
think,
there.
there's something about I mean, if you think of like the addiction community, right? And you think
Mm,
of
yeah.
these groups like Al-Anon or AA or, you know, there is something to that, the power of the group, right? When you get a group of people together and it allows space for vulnerability to
Mm,
exist. And I think that when you start processing your emotions, a little vulnerability does come in, but that's the magic, right? The
yeah.
magic is that vulnerable space. And it sounds to me like you have, there's a group of you that feel safe enough together where you can let your guard down. And I think it's really powerful that you're speaking, Carl. And I think the fact that you needed a translator is even more powerful because you're relatable and people need to feel that you understand them, right? And so it allows people to feel safe enough to let that a little bit of the wall down. And when you bring the wall down, emotions are going to start moving and processing. So, no, does it surprise me that she was able to do that and become a runner? And I'm amazed, but it doesn't, I think once you start processing emotions, you can do anything. You can do anything.
Yeah. I'm going to have some processing to do when we get done because this is all so powerful. And I can only imagine some of the breakthroughs you must see in your work, in your writing, and stories you probably get. Because a little bit
Mhm.
can go a long ways and make a huge difference.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's what keeps me going, right? I mean, that's what keeps you going at the end of the day. It's
Yeah,
when you get that person and that feels like it's changed their life. And at first you tell yourself, oh, if I can just help one person, then it's like, oh wow, I did the one. Now if I can help two. Right. Oh
wow.
great. I helped two. That's fantastic. Anything after that's a bonus, right? I
Yeah,
think that's why people, if I could just help one person, then it wasn't for nothing, right, Carl? It wasn't for nothing. And
totally.
that's really what Emotional Detox was all about, that because that's a lot of my personal story, in that book, in the core book. And then Emotional Detox for Anxiety is more of, gets further into the cleanse and how it works with anxiety and things like that, for sure.
Well, it also seems like now, in this day and age, it just seems like there's a lot of anxiety. We're in a pandemic right now.
Mm,
Obviously, there's a lot of anxiety with that.
yeah.
So, what a great time to get your book and
Yeah.
learn and go through the process.
Who would have thought, huh?
Yeah, really, there's another thing, if I can just think of it real quick. Oh, I might think of it and I might not. So let me ask you this. So, by the way, for people watching, we met about 3 minutes before we started. We
Mhm.
didn't talk about anything. We barely emailed. In my music career, I didn't like rehearsing. As Dom Familaro, my friend, says, rehearsals are for cowards. Now, that's not all the time, but I really like the organic flow of this today. And I just, when I was reading about you, I know you really know your stuff. So I feel safe in asking you this question. And
Okay.
this is the one that I usually tell people I'm going to ask.
Okay.
If you had, other than the fact that I think everybody should buy your book, and we want to talk about where to get that here in a minute, what would, if you had one piece of advice to give, and you only had one thing you were allowed to say to everybody, the world, what is that?
Well, I
And
say,
I
yeah,
can
go ahead.
qualify by saying, when it comes to
Mm,
managing anxiety, managing these beliefs and thought processes.
okay. So, one thing as far as when it comes to managing,
Yeah,
I would say stop managing.
that's a great answer.
That's a reaction.
That was actually so simple. Why did I think of that? That's why you're here talking with me.
That's
Yeah,
work.
seriously.
That's
Yeah.
work. And work is effort and energy and attention that's going to, you know, be on the outside. So quit managing. You have enough jobs, right? You don't need any more jobs. I know I have enough jobs. Why
Mhm.
do I need a job on managing my emotions now
Jeez.
or managing anxiety? No, we don't
That,
manage, we feel. Managing and feeling are not the same.
jeez, who said that? Somebody said we're not human doings, we're human beings, and human beings feel.
Yeah.
Feeling is part of us. We're supposed to be feeling things.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't emote, it's not good for your physical health either, long
Yeah.
term. You
Yeah.
got to get it out. You got to deal with shit.
Yeah.
Oops, I said a bad word. It's organic, though.
Uh,
You've got to deal with stuff.
yeah.
I'm a late bloomer, but I'm learning every day, and I learned a lot today.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you and your friends and whoever
We should do
else.
this. Yeah, thank you. And thank you,
Yeah.
everyone who's watching. And we should do this again sometime. And
Mm.
um,
Well, I have
go from there.
another book coming out next fall. So if that would be really great because I wrote 135 emotional detoxes in that book.
Whoa.
It's and that will come out next fall, and it's for everything, every love, relationships, finances, everything. That book changed my life as well. After I wrote 135, but it probably did well over 200 while I was writing it, and
Mhm.
just like everything,
And that's it. Is that this fall of
that's
2021 that'll be
221.
out?
That one comes out, yeah. So, but it's great if
Great.
they have
Oh,
the foundation, which these other books provide,
yeah.
and then they'll be ready. They'll be ready to take on their 135, practices, and you will transform for
That's
sure.
fantastic. So,
Yeah.
where is the best place for people to get your books?
You can go anywhere you like to shop. Barnes and Noble has it, and online, Amazon, of course. Local, maybe your local bookshop. I'm not sure. My website, sheriannaboyle.com, offers many selections there for people to pick which one they want to shop at.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love this. This I could talk for hours.
Yeah.
And we will. It's over time. We can talk for hours. I won't keep you that long today, but this got my head spinning, and I love it when my head spins.
Yeah.
I love
Right.
to be able to think and realize things that I keep learning. Things don't have to be so complicated.
No.
I am so good at it. I'm so good at complicating things. I'm real
Oh,
good, but I'm getting better at not making it that way. Sherianna, thanks so much. It was really a pleasure.
thank you.
And folks, go look for Sherianna Boyle's books. Okay, I'll have a link when I post this. I'll make also put a YouTube thing, and then I'll post and tag you and all that. So we'll make sure the website's in there, and go look, go find, go read and learn. And hey, it's another step closer to better quality of life. Not closer to it. You'll actually manage. You'll immediately realize some changes, and I think it's wow. Cleanse is great. So go get her books. And thank you again,
Thank,
everybody, for watching. Thank you, Sherianna, for joining me. Let's
thank
stay
you.
in touch, okay?
I will. Thank you.
All right. Take care now.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.